Welcome to Unleash Your Inspired Voice, the podcast that focuses on developing a more conscious-minded, heart-centered approach to life and business. And now here to introduce today's special guest is the host of Unleash Your Inspired Voice, author, content strategist, and Unity Consciousness activist, Peter Clark Nelson.
Hi, this is Peter Clark Nelson, the host of the Unleash Your Inspired Voice podcast. Some of our guests are gracious enough to provide extra bonus material for our listeners to dive deeper into inspiring and timely topics that we didn't cover in the original interview. This is one of those bonus videos. Joining me on this bonus video is author, success strategist, and founder of Selling in Color, Marr Brown. Marr and I are going to talk about why success is uncomfortable. The truth is, this is the dirty little secret that few in the self-help industry want to talk about, and for good reason. To frame our discussion on this subject, we will guide you through a detailed reality-based process for consciously recognizing where you need to make changes during critical moments in your life. We call them moments of impact. Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Peter Clark Nelson, and Marr Brown is with me. We're going to be taking you down a journey into the world of legacy and specifically moments of impact. And as you were listening to the interview between Marr and I, we were talking about how we wanted to extend the conversation, and we're going to frame this around a question that Marr and I started asking ourselves many years ago, but we really got a sense of clarity on it last year. And that question is, why is success so uncomfortable? We live in a success-driven society, and there's nothing wrong with being successful. There's nothing wrong with setting goals and having a dream and living it and achieving your goals and exceeding them. The question is, why is it that when people achieve a certain level of success or they exceed their expectations, the feeling of fulfillment still seems to elude so many of us? And Marr and I have lived that personally. We work with clients all over the world who have achieved incredible amounts of success, and they're living a legacy, and yet they still don't find that sense of enjoyment. And there's reasons for it that Marr and I have discovered over the last 20 years of doing our own personal research, working on this within our own personal lives and careers, and then, of course, the work that we're doing with our clients. So we want to share some of that with you today in this bonus video. So with that in mind, Marr, let's start off by answering that question. Why is success so uncomfortable for so many people?
Well, Peter, I think it's one of those questions that when somebody first hears it, it's sort of ironic. You think success should make you feel comfortable, make you feel happy, make you feel fulfilled. But the reality is when you look at, whether it's celebrities and how, you hear stories every single day of a celebrity who has it all, who, money and fame and wealth, and then they, commit suicide, or they're on drugs, or they were, you find out that they were really depressed and unhappy. And even from a business perspective, when you really sit down and talk to business professionals, a lot of them will say that they don't feel happy and fulfilled in their careers, even though they are making money and having they make a good living for themselves. And there are people that I have coached that literally have won salesperson of the year, sales manager of the year, and then called me up and said, Marr, I feel miserable. I'm not happy. And there's people that have left companies and organizations because they're trying to sort of get away from this feeling of not being fulfilled and not being happy, even though they may have experienced a certain level of success. And so when Peter and I started talking about these stories of people, we came up with the idea of trying to uncover why is success uncomfortable for so many people. And there's really a number of reasons for that. One of the reasons, which relates directly to the podcast that Peter and I did, and Peter, thanks you very much for once again for having me as your guest. And
thank you for it's an honor to have you on, and thank you for helping launch the Unleash Your Inspired Voice podcast. So
my pleasure. One of the things we talked about was your purpose-driven career, and oftentimes we become disconnected from our purpose, and so we wake up and we're just doing things, and we forget the reason why we're doing things. When there is no purpose, there is no inner drive or motivation or inspiration for doing what we do, it ends up just being activities that we have to get done. We just get through our day, and then after a while, it just builds on us more and more, and we sort of push down our inner self and push down our inner happiness because we are supposed to be a certain way at our job and our career. We're supposed to to act successful because we quote unquote are successful, even though we feel miserable inside. And a big reason for that is because we have disconnected from our purpose, number one, or we're not clear on our purpose from the start. And so we set out on a path and we go places that we really don't know why we're going there. We're going there because that's what society tells us to do. That's what our parents tell us to do. That's what our friends tell us to do. But we're really not happy or connected to a deeper purpose for the things that we do. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons why success is uncomfortable, is because when you achieve it, you realize that, there's no meaning behind it. There's no purpose. There's no major inspirational point behind it, because you were never connected to that purpose from the start. And so that's one of the reasons why success is uncomfortable for people. I'll let Peter comment on that. Then I'll share some other reasons why success is uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Well, those are excellent points. And I think one of the things that you said that is really important, and hopefully people watching this bonus video will start to look at their own lives and figure out, well, if I'm going after a particular goal, or I have an inspired message and I want to raise the consciousness of the planet, and yet if you can't enjoy the process of doing that, then when you actually begin to see the fruits of your labor blossom, and you start to actually realize and look and see the lives that you're positively impacting, you won't feel into it, because, as Jamar was saying, most people were raised in a way that they were told to go do certain things to be successful, right? So you got to go to college, get a degree. You've got to have a home, get married, have some kids, climb the corporate ladder. Or if you're going to start your own business, you got to have a sales funnel. You got to have some fans. You got to have social media platforms now. 20 years ago, social media didn't exist. So you got to go network. And I mean, there's so many things that people are being told to do to be successful, that during that process, you forget, what is my purpose here? Mm-hmm. Is my purpose to start a business so I can have a nice looking website? That's an important piece, but is that really what it's about? Is it about having clients, having thousands of people following you on social media? What exactly is it? And for those people who are accessing this bonus video, if you have not listened and watched the interview that Jamar and I did on episode 1 of the Unleash Your Inspired Voice podcast, finish watching and listening to this. But please, I invite you to make the time to go back and watch and listen to that podcast, because there's some things that Jamar talked about that really begin to unravel a lot of what we're going a little bit deeper into in this conversation. So really, I think the key to this whole thing is that the vast majority of us were not raised, and we weren't conditioned, and we weren't taught how to find our purpose. We're just told, go do X, Y, and Z, and that's what you're supposed to do. So we go and do it. All of a sudden we wake up one day and we're like, the fuck is this? Somebody lied to me. I want a refund. Mm. And that's for people who have achieved levels of success that a lot of people look to and they dream about. And that's why I think I'm glad you mentioned the celebrities and some of the very well-known people that have committed suicide, or their lives or their careers have just been derailed by some ridiculous decision that they made. Mm-hmm. It's so consistent. So let's delve a little bit deeper in that. And I want to go back to one of the subjects that we talked about on the podcast, and that is part of this bonus document from Love Your Legacy Now, which is moments of impact.
Right.
So let's look at moments of impact. And why do you feel that when somebody is continuously having the same result that is a shitty result, like this doesn't feel good, right? It's the person that keeps plowing into the glass door, and they know the door is there. They just keep going back and forth. And why do people do that? Like, where is this sense of pain coming from that they have to keep repeating it over and over again when they know there's another way around it?
Well, I think for those that either didn't watch the podcast or want a little bit of a deeper understanding of moments of impact, let me share that, Peter, then we'll dive into more of the details around it. So moments of impact, as Peter and I sort of discovered last year through our discussions about the clients we're coaching and things that we're going through, even for ourselves personally, we labeled it moments of impact, but really there's two tracks of this moment of impact. The first track is you're doing something over and over again and you expect a different result. And it could be you're in a relationship with someone and it hasn't changed in years and it's the same pattern, and you expect them to change or you expect something to be different, but it's continually, it's the same thing over and over again. And we know that as a definition of insanity, and we've all been in situations like that, and we all can relate to that. Then as we were, sort of delving deeper into this idea of moments of impact, Peter and I came up with the concept that there is another level of doing the same thing over and over again, but you don't expect a different result. You have become comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have sort of, acquiesced to this idea that it's not going to change, but you continue to put yourself in an uncomfortable, unhappy position, but you don't expect it to be different. And so I think most of us are in one of those two tracks with certain things in our lives. Either we expect something to be different, even though we keep doing the same thing, or we keep doing the same thing and we just go, oh, that's just the way it is. And so the question is why? Why do we continually put ourselves in those positions where we're not happy with the outcome? And there's a number of reasons for that. There could be a fear of change. It's sort of like, you know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. And so the idea of moving away from what you're comfortable with into the land of unknown can be frightening for people. It can be scary. There's also this idea of unworthiness where you think that, hey, you don't deserve any better. That's just how your life is supposed to be. I was raised this way. My family treated me this way. This person treats me this way, and my friends treat me this way. And that's just the way it is. And this is who I am. And so we are not clear of who we could really become or who we really are. And we just accept that, this level of uncomfort, being uncomfortable and unhappy is just the way it's supposed to be. I think another reason why is because we, it's sort of like the whole elephant, experiment where we have a baby elephant and a circus elephant, and they put these thick chains around the elephant's leg, and the baby elephant can't break that chain. And so they grow up thinking that they see a chain on their leg and they can't do anything else. They can't break free. And so when the elephant gets bigger and more powerful than probably any animal alive, and they put even the smallest chain around the elephant's ankle, the elephant in his or her mind believe that they can't break free because they have gotten conditioned to a certain way of life, which is similar to what I just said, Peter, around just becoming accustomed to things. But now I'm talking about how the mind sort of gets locked into a position, and we don't understand that there's ways to unlock your mind to know that you can break free and become anything you want to become. So those are a few reasons why we can continually do things over and over again when we know that the result is not, we don't want it, we're not happy, we're not fulfilled. There's other reasons, but those are probably three of the main ones.
Yeah, those are some very good reasons. I'm glad that you brought up the example of the elephant, because that's something visually that we can all see in our mind's eye. We've experienced that in terms of we've seen elephants that have chained up, and it's it's a horrible experience for an elephant to go through that. But the relationship to a human being and how we get conditioned into limitation and how we get conditioned into scarcity and masquerading as abundance, and we get conditioned that success that we believe will bring us fulfillment actually brings us the opposite. And there seems to be no real definitive answer as to A, why is this happening? B, how do I get myself out of it? And C, once I get myself out of it, how do I not go back? Because a lot of the things that we break free from linger around like little remnants of, the memory, the echoes, and they kind of come back in at times to sort of invite us to maybe go back to being chained up into a life of, limitation. And that takes us into another story of the idea of tribal shaming and what keeps us confined, which you and I will talk about at another point. If you can, though, share some techniques and things that you've used in your life and ways that you work with your own clients. How do you reframe your mindset? What are some of the things that a person can do to break free from that and then not go back to it? Because obviously, if you're used to it for so many years, it's sort of like going on you go on a diet. I lost 10, 15 pounds. I feel great. 6 months later, I've gained 30 pounds. So how does a person break free and then stay free?
Well, it's a great question. And really what kind of has to happen is really what the moment of impact is. So to this point, we've talked about what leads to a moment of impact, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and you expect a different result, or doing the same thing over and over again and you don't expect a different result. But then there comes that day, that point, that time where you're like, F it. I am done. I am sick and tired of being in the same situation. I am sick and tired of things not changing. I am absolutely done. And it's at that moment you can start to make a change. If you don't get to that point, then you're just going to live life accepting what is. And so we all get to that moment, and that moment may have passed for some of us. And that moment may be sort of right here and now, or we may feel in our heart that it's coming. But once you get to that point, even if you've been there before, now you're thinking, man, I had that moment, but I went back to something. Let me give you a couple things you can do to break free, be the elephant that breaks the chain. First of all, you have to believe that you can. You have to believe that there is something better. You have to believe that there's a higher purpose for you than just what you see in front of you. And that's the mentality that you have to have. Then you start to look at, okay, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want my experience to be? And the ideal, thing to tap into is a concept that Peter and I, came up with, and we're launching a lot of programs around it, is love your legacy now. And that is to understand that every day of your life, you are becoming something. You're leaving a legacy behind. And I would imagine if you are constantly going through the same thing every single day, and you're not happy with it, then you're not happy with your legacy. And so the key thing is, how do you start to change your legacy? Well, you have to have a higher purpose for what you do, a reason why you want to do something different, a key purpose in your life. It could be, just realizing your potential. It could be your children, your family. It could be, a lot of different things. But you have to tap into that and believe that you are worthy and you deserve that, and believe that you can absolutely live your legacy. And so the question is, well, how do you start doing that today? Because you want to love your legacy today. And that is to say that your past thoughts and your past behaviors have led to your current result. And you have to sort of take ownership of the fact that, hey, you are who you are today because of your past thoughts and past behaviors. And if you're not happy with who you are, then just accept that. Say, you know what? Hey, but here's the beauty of it, Peter. And that is, if that's the case, if your situation is the way it is today because of your past thoughts and past behaviors, the powerful part of that is that you own it. So if you own who you are today, you can absolutely own who you become tomorrow. How do you do that? By adjusting your current thoughts and your current behaviors. You align your thought process with the thought process you want to have to become the legacy that you want to leave behind in this world. You adjust your behaviors today to do the things that will help you to connect with your legacy that you want to love in the future. And you realize that everything you do today, you are in complete control over your thoughts and your behaviors. And when you align them to your legacy and your purpose, you can absolutely change your life. And once you do that, it will be very difficult to go back to the way you were, because you realize that who you are becoming and the person you really are is not who you are today, and you will never go back to that. So that's one very powerful way to change things today, Peter, to love your legacy, to break free, and to deal with that moment of impact that we all deal with at some point in our lives.
That's amazing. And you and I both are living testaments of that. The thing that happens, I think, for a lot of people is that, and we talk about this in Love Your Legacy Now, and I wanted to just kind of address this real briefly here in this bonus video, because this next subject is going to segue into the My Legacy document, which people are going to get access to, and they can get that if they want to go to the loveyourlegacynow.com website as well. When people start readjusting their perceptions of themselves, that's happening internally, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, though, because we've been raised to view our sense of self-worth and judge ourselves by our surroundings and what other people are saying, which is the external, mm-hmm. The challenge might be for a lot of people is as they begin to readjust how they feel about themselves on the inside, they accept experiences that have brought them to this point, but they realize their past does not define their future, but the future might be 6 months to a year down the road. So here you are, and I'm, as an individual, right? So you're stuck right now in an environment. Maybe it's a job, maybe it's a place where you're living, maybe it's a financial situation, maybe it's a physical thing. And you look at your current situation from an external, and it looks nothing like the legacy that you're envisioning down the road. So it may seem insurmountable to go from where you are to where you believe you are going to be. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the ways that people can begin readjusting that and allowing us their larger purpose or their legacy to be the catalyst that can carry them beyond what might appear from an external standpoint to be, maybe impossible odds, or you're stuck with this situation, you're never going to be able to get out of it? How can somebody reconfigure that from the inside out and then again from the outside in?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm going to give everyone one specific thing, even though there's several things we could talk about. In the workbook I created, the sales and communication training workbook called Selling in Color, I have 5 mindsets of sales success, right? These are 5 mindsets I think a salesperson needs to have to really unleash their potential. One of those mindsets is to enjoy the journey and the process. We've all heard that before. I mean, that's kind of a cliche term, but it's so true, because the reality is that where you are today versus where you want to be in the future, there's a gap. And so the question is, how are you going to think about that gap? How are you going to fulfill that gap? Because you're not going to get to where you want to get to overnight. There's a journey and a process. And let me share a quick story which will really edify what I'm going to say. When I first became a sales manager, and Peter, you remember this because you were one of the consultants brought in to help my team, with some things, and we had tremendous success. We started out as 20 out of 21 in the country, second to last in the nation. Our second year, with the things we implemented, the concepts we're talking about right here, the things that Peter and I have come up with over the years, our team went from second to last in the nation. We finished number 2 in the country the following year. Our goal was to finish number 1. So in our second full year, we finished number 1 in the country, and our team won Sales Team of the Year. As a matter of fact, the video of my acceptance speech is on YouTube under my Marr Brown channel. So the question is, which year was more successful? The year that we went from number 2 to number 1, or the year that we went from number 20 out of 21 to number 2? My perspective is the year in which we went from number 20 out of 21 to number 2, because of the journey. Our destination, what we wanted to do, what we wanted to accomplish was number 1 in the country. We missed our goal that first year. However, the breakthroughs that people had on the team, the ability to fight through all the challenges and the mindsets and the frustrations that wanted to derail us from our purpose, to go from number 20 out of 21 to move up nearly 19 spots in the rankings with a new mentality, I would argue that was much more successful than going from number 2 to number 1. How does that relate to what we're saying? You have to enjoy the fact that you were on the journey and appreciate the fact that you are learning and growing along the way, and celebrate the successes along the way. If you run a marathon, you celebrate each small leg of the race. You don't just say, well, I'll feel good about myself when I finish a marathon. What if you don't finish? Does that mean you're a failure? Only if you didn't appreciate the ride and the journey along the way, and if you didn't learn from it. You may not hit the ultimate goal you want to hit, right? Not everybody's going to be the number 1 manager in the nation. Not everyone's going to be the top salesperson. Not everyone's going to have $1 billion, startup company. But that doesn't mean you aren't as successful as them, not financially and material-wise, but because of who you became, because of your mindset, because of how you evolved and you developed as a person, and how you impacted the lives of other people. That's the importance of enjoying the journey when you decide to take action, when you have that moment of impact, and try to become something than you are today. And so that's the powerful thing, Peter. Enjoy the journey and the process, and that is really the success, not the end result.
Absolutely. Brilliant suggestions. And I want to add to that for people watching this bonus video. A couple of days ago, I had an amazing conversation with my client, Caroline Gask, and Caroline and I were talking about what it takes to actually move through transitions. She's a transition specialist, but she works with people on how to become a conscious leader and be the center of change. In other words, when you're the center of change and you're making adjustments, you are going to be able to see a different reality than a lot of the people around you. And in order for the other people around you to be able to see what you see, you're going to have to be able to articulate it. And then B, and equally important, you're going to have to be the first one to jump into the unknown.
True.
So when you jump into the unknown, that's just it. It's the unknown. And you might have some idea of what to expect. So how do you traverse a terrain that you've never been in before? Well, she gave an example of this with her and her mother. They were scaling this massive mountain in the Alps, and Caroline had a younger guide with her, taking her up, and her mother had a more seasoned guide. And it got to the point where her mother wasn't able to go any further. And she's like, that's it. I don't want to slow the team down. I'm just going to stay right here. And so the younger guide was like, come on, you're going to go, you're going to regret this. And if you don't get to the top of the mountain, you're never going to, you're just going to have regret. Like, he's selling the idea that you got on this expedition to get to the top of the mountain, to see the view, and to know you did it. Mm-hmm. Well, the seasoned guide, he realized it's going to take a little bit of a different approach. So he began talking about focusing on a very short distance in front of them, what they could actually see. So he would say to her mother, do you see that rock right there? And she said, yes. He says, okay, what I want us to do is just walk there, and then we're just going to take a break, and we can, call it a day. So he'd go to the rock, they'd make that distance, and he's like, do you see that rock up there? Are you okay to maybe move that direction? She's like, yeah, okay. So they moved that direction. They were making incremental progress. Well, eventually her mother did reach the top of the mountain, and she told the guide, I knew what you were doing, but I could follow you because I could see what was in front of me enough to walk. I could not see the top of this mountain. And a lot of people that do those kinds of climbs, I've never done anything quite like that before, but I know that a lot of people do those kinds of climbs. There's a technique where they roll up a ball of snow and they throw it in front of them, and they walk to where they can see that ball of snow sitting there. Mm-hmm. So it's compartmentalizing this process. But as you're doing that, whatever it is in your life, if you're losing weight, I had to lose over 100 plus pounds. I was almost 140 pounds overweight at one point. Mm-hmm. I didn't sit there and go, 2 weeks later, where the hell's all that? I'm not losing enough weight yet. Mm-hmm. I had to take it incrementally. But to your point, and to the examples I just gave, you have to enjoy every step you're taking. Be able to look around you, and you see the beauty of what's around you as you're taking those steps. And a lot of times people say, you just put your nose to the grindstone and you go. Well, that can only work for a short period of time. But you've got to be aware of what's going on around you so that you can enjoy it, as Jamar was saying. Otherwise, there's no beauty in the achievement if you can't enjoy the process of what it is you're trying to achieve. So,
yeah. And Peter, if I can add this, because I think this is one point. I know we're running short on time. I really want to make, and that is, oftentimes, and I'm guilty of saying this to people. We say you have to do this. If you want to lose weight, you have to do this. You have to do that. And if you want to open your business, you have to do this. And I think one of the podcasts I did. When it was part of my Break It Down Brown show, was called "You Don't Have to," and the reason why I came up with that is because I started thinking about it. Like, there's so much pressure in thinking you have to do something, right? Just like with the guide and you were describing, the guy's like, you got to get to the top. Like, there's so much pressure, especially when you feel like you don't have anything left in the tank, and so that could paralyze people. It can make you go the other direction. And so, what I want to leave everyone with is this whole concept of you don't have to. Because when you are told you have to do something, sometimes we feel like the other person has power over us because they're telling us what to do. And not very many people like to be told what to do every step of the way. The key thing is you do what you want to do. You take ownership of it and you take control over it. Because here's the reality. You own it. And what I would tell people is, if you were in that moment of impact, if you're not happy with the way your life is, if you're not feeling good about the way things are, then you don't have to do anything about it. It's your choice. But the one question I want you to ask yourself is, what's the alternative, right? If you don't make a change and you look back at your life 5, 10, 15 years from now, are you going to be happy with the way your life is? Are you going to look back with regret? Or are you going to look back with, you know what? At least I tried it. And the only question is, how do you want to look at it? What do you want to tell yourself? What do you want to tell other people about your life today when you're, 10 years older from now? And so you don't have to, but what is the alternative? And the bottom line is this. A friend of mine asked me one time, I was, going from corporate to being an entrepreneur. And she said, Jamar, it must be difficult to like leave your corporate job and leave the safety and the security of the job and all these things. And that's what she told me. And my response, it kind of shocked me, but I said, you know what? I said, actually, you might think it's difficult to make this change, but honestly, it's more difficult not to. Because the alternative is to live a life of regret, a life of what if, I wish, if only, if I could go back. That's the alternative to staying where you are as opposed to taking a chance. Now, things may not always work out the way you want them to. You may not always, hit all the successes in the world you want, but the person you will become, the journey you'll go on, what you will learn will be incredible. And there's doors that will be open to you that you can't even imagine right now because all you see is this. But when you open up your mind to other perspectives, there are some things that may come into place that you go, you know what? It's not what I wanted, but it's even freaking better. And Peter and I are living examples of that. So you don't have to, but when you do make that choice, you're choosing to live a life of purpose, a life of happiness versus staying in a life of regret and denial and this sense that you are more than what you really are. And I'm saying, don't live that way. Well, you don't have to if you want to, but I'm offering up that there's another alternative that could blow your mind. And that's what I want to leave you with.
It's a beautiful thing to leave everyone with on this bonus video. And whatever that choice is that you make, remember, go all in. You owe it to yourself to go all in. Jamar, thank you so very much for the time of doing this bonus video and for working with me on the Love Your Legacy Now program and offering up the 2 documents that we have here for everybody as a bonus with Moments of Impact and the My Legacy document. We do invite you to go over to loveyourlegacynow.com to learn more about what Love Your Legacy Now actually is. You'll get some more perspective around those documents, and you can further engage with Marr and I in the conversation and going even deeper into uncovering what has been holding you back from enjoying your success and be able to more effectively and consciously see your moments of impact and then what you can do to take inspired and aligned action with those moments. And also, Jamar, if the Selling in Color program, now people can learn more about that if they go to sellingincolor.com. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep. Sellingincolor.com. It's spelled just how it sounds. Sellingincolor.com. Yes.
Fantastic. And of course, you can also find Jamar on social media. And again, if you haven't had an opportunity to watch the original interview for the first episode of Unleash Your Inspired Voice, go back and watch that. You're going to be introduced to some just incredible and inspiring stories of real life experiences that Jamar shared with the audience. And if you have watched it, go back and watch that again. Find some segments in there that you might want to get reminded about. And then again, extend your conversation with Jamar. Go to sellingincolor.com, go to loveyourlegacynow.com. And I want to thank everybody for watching this bonus video. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Unleash Your Inspired Voice. To learn more about Marr Brown, be sure to visit sellingincolor.com and jamarbrown.com. You can also follow him on Facebook and LinkedIn. To learn more about the Unleash Your Inspired Voice podcast and gain access to more bonus material from many of our show's guests, including your free copy of the Moments of Impact document, visit unleashyourinspiredvoice.com.